So that's it, everybody. Daryl Dixon Season 2 has now concluded. We have the finale today, and it's an interesting episode. The first half of the episode went roughly how I thought it would, wrapping up the Laurent storyline and setting everybody on their way. And then towards the end of the episode, we got a part that was kind of unusual. It definitely is a surprising part of the episode, but the purpose of it is to give Daryl and Carol conclusions to where their character arcs have gone in these 2 seasons. And I think it's interesting. I actually enjoyed this episode overall. I think it was pretty solid. I definitely stand by my criticisms of the plot lines to this point. I feel like a lot of things were rushed this season, and a lot of Carol's part of the episode were very contrived. Stand by those 100%. There's a couple little things in this episode here, but I think that back half of this episode, that last scene in particular, is going to lose some people because it's a little more out there, but I actually like what they were trying to do. This episode is called Au revoir les enfants, and that is a French film by Louis Malle, and it's basically a Holocaust film about kids in a school. The Gestapo come and they take away the Jewish students, and the principal as well, Pierre Jean, he was taken away as well at the end of the film, and he says au revoir les enfants. And I'm just now realizing that the priest from season 1 who was raising Laurent was also named Pierre Jean, so that was definitely a reference to this film as well. We have this idea of sacrifice, this idea of like fascist villains coming in, and then we have this idea of leaving things behind, which is where we get at the end of this episode. So those things are definitely all in that title, and that's a phenomenal film. If you haven't seen it, definitely seek it out if you can. I don't know where you can watch it, but definitely check it out. So we have this final scene with Laurent and Daryl just on their own. They're playing the song, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need." And that's kind of just like screenwriting 101. You know, you have, when you're taking a screenwriting class, they'll tell you every character has a desire, a want, and then they have a need. And in pursuit of the want, they will get what they need instead. And in this case, Daryl, of course, wanted Isabel to come with him. He wanted Laurent. He wanted everybody back home safe at the Commonwealth. But what does he get instead? He gets hope, which is what he needed all along. But this first scene here was a lovely scene, and you know, Daryl getting emotional at the end definitely shows that he kind of feels like everything's done for him. Even though he's promising to Laurent, "I will be there," Laurent's presenting the truth that you can't promise that. You can't see the future. Daryl says he promises, but I think his voice quivering at the end of this shows maybe he is getting tired. And that's another theme, that they've been surviving so long, they're going to have trouble having the motivation to continue on. I do like what we do with zombies in this episode. We have a lot of creative zombies, particularly the glowing zombies at the end in the tunnel, but they also didn't stop there. We have a fun kind of mental institution that we go into where the zombies are strapped to wheelchairs and strapped to beds. And it was just pretty creative. I don't think we've had that on Walking Dead as well, so the fact that they continue to keep the zombies fresh, I think, is really important for a zombie franchise like this. So they're killing it here, and I appreciate what they do. So we kind of have this scene with Follow, and he's got a new love interest. I don't even know what her name is. Was she even in the show before this? I don't even remember. Probably. But they had just decided to start up a love interest thing to give him a happy ending, which I do appreciate, but I don't know, it just kind of feels like too little too late to just give him this love storyline. Although Coderon's part here is pretty funny when they have some lines joking about that. Then we see the zombies, just really great stuff. This is just generic, like we're looking for supplies of some type. They get attacked here is as if these soldiers were here waiting for them, so it's like they knew that they were going to get here. I don't know, it just seems very convenient. They didn't hear them entering or anything like that. Something you gotta accept. It's fine, it's not really that bad. So here we have this pouvoir, I think they're called, and the cause is not dead. Now there's no one to fight against, right? Because of Lo Sang's people and the rebellion there, and these guys, the pouvoir, Janae's people, they've merged into one. And when that happens, what you get is a lot of consolidating of power. So you might think, oh, there's no more fighting left, it's over now. That's not really the case. So here we get to see that in action. We get to see Coderon. He knows where the plane is, and so they have to take them out. The woman, the love interest for Fallow, takes out a couple, and then she says something about men. She's like, oh, men, am I right? I don't really get that because there's like the woman who is in charge of the soldiers there, and it just seemed out of place, and she's trying to save men. I didn't really understand what that joke was. Now we're back with the plane. Laurent is thankful that Carol was lying. He's kind of been like a moral center for the show, and now he's saying it's a good thing you lied because it got us here, which, you know, is just his kind of naive way of looking at it, but it definitely is what Carol almost needed to hear in that moment. And we got a scene here with Ash and Daryl, kind of a bonding scene, and then we see that there are zombies in this tunnel, and that's going to come back later. And then we're with Anna, who is from Russia. She's taken over from Quinn, the bar. Now that power's consolidating, like I said, they're still trying to find the child because that story of the savior child is something that they can still use to their advantage, and the leader here is very much committed to that idea. And you get to see that she is a lot more aggressive. She's beating people up, threatening people, and she still has this belief system. And unlike Lo Sang, she doesn't have any like moral qualms about taking out her enemies. So here we have Anne, and she makes a deal. And Anne here kind of has a conundrum. Does she save herself, or does she save Laurent? Which she has done multiple times at this point. But when she's done it before, it didn't really put her at risk in the crosshairs, because it was Lo Sang before. He wasn't going to do anything to her. And in season 1, she was also like acting against Quinn's wishes. It was really more about a beef that she had with him than anything. Although I knew it was eventually going to work out that she would sacrifice herself. You know, they just want you to think that she won't, because she seems to be saying, oh, you can kill my friend, I don't care. I almost looked at that as, I think she was actually trying to save her friend there, and she was just acting that way because she felt like it was the best way to get what she wanted out of it. So we have this dilemma. Not everybody can go on the plane. Everybody on the plane would be too heavy for it to lift off. So Carol and Daryl have to argue over who's going to go, who's going to stay. And it ends up with Carol, because Ash comes in and says, Daryl knows the area better. He knows everybody here, and you know the airplane, which I don't know about that, because everything Carol knows about the airplane is probably something you could teach somebody in 5 minutes, considering, you know, she didn't really do that much with the plane. I don't know. That seemed like a stretch to me. And it's also this forgiveness aspect. That's another theme of this episode. So Ash forgives Carol because Carol says to Ash in this episode, you wanted to save a child, you still can. Laurent is that child for you. So ultimately, there's that want and that need. He wanted to save Sophia for Carol, and he ended up needing to save a child so that he can like kind of get past his grief over his son, and he can use Laurent to do that. And then Caudron and Fallot show up, and now everybody's converging on the racetrack. It does feel a little sudden that Anne seemingly changes her mind here. Although, was this her play all along? I don't know. She sees this sign here and remembers the conversation about the Eiffel Tower that she had with Laurent and seems to change her mind here. I don't know if she led them here because she had to get them close and then wanted to sabotage them and try to help them out. Why didn't she just say anywhere else? You know, she could have said, oh, it's over here, and then led them there, but then again, they would find out as soon as they get there that the plane's not actually here. So I don't know. She could have led them into another trap somewhere else, and that would have been even more effective because they wouldn't be close to the plane taking off. So maybe it was just a seat of the pants decision here, where she gets to that moment, she's like, no, actually, I don't want to take out Laurent. So she leads them down into this tunnel, zombies come out. And here's another scene in Walking Dead where it's a little too convenient in the sense that we have seasoned survivors here, people that have been fighting zombies for over a decade, and all of a sudden they're getting jumped by a bunch of zombies, and it's like they never have fought zombies before. So it's hard for me to buy into that scene as much, although I get that it's dark, I get that it's always going to be dangerous, maybe one or two of them, and that is kind of what happened. Most of them do survive, and she ends up getting trapped. This is her sacrificing herself, so that's why the title of the episode references that movie, because she's kind of sacrificing herself for the children, for the greater good, and this is the end of her story arc. She even says earlier, my life, you can take it or leave it. She's not all that concerned about it. She doesn't have anything left to live for, seemingly, so she wants her death to have meaning, I think. And now we have the airplane taking off, and this is pretty solid. This stuff here, we got dudes coming out of the stadium, we have a gunfight, we're using the horse starter thing to block the shots and stuff, and it's using the scenery well. There's definitely stormtrooper aim, you know, conveniently they're missing and stuff like that. But it's fine. It works for me. I like this scene. It's a nice action scene. You get the plane taken off. And I did think for a second, you know, maybe the ending is that Laurent or Ash dies. Like, it could have happened. I don't know. I wasn't sure. So that's the feeling that they want you to have. And I know Daryl and Carol aren't going to die, but I don't know about these other characters, right? So it culminates in Carol jumping out of the airplane because Daryl can't reload in time. And then Carol jumps out and she takes the shot. So that's the nice surprise. They end up together. It's a little convenient because, okay, everybody else got written off the show, and now it's just Carol and Daryl again. But isn't that really what we wanted all along? So we still have half of the episode to go, and it feels like everything wrapped up. Because the leader of this group here, the Pouvoir, she puts the gun to her head and shoots because her beliefs are now crumbling down. Also, Jacinta was bitten in the tunnels, so that's part of why she shoots herself, because she was only staying alive so that she could try to get Laurent back. So I think a lot of people might have missed that, but that's why she does what she does in this scene. But the one thing there is that wouldn't be the end of this. If she did that, the other people are going to be pissed, okay? Everybody around is going to continue fighting. They're not just going to be like, all right, see you guys later. They wanted you to have that finality. The plane taking off, that's the end of the storyline. That's the way it feels. That's the way they write it. And that's ultimately not that big a deal. So here we're meeting up with some Scottish people, and as soon as they showed up, I was like, those are the red shirts. They're going to die for sure. But it ended up being more interesting than I expected. And I was surprised that we had so much of the episode left. Here we got a scene with Caudron and Daryl, and they're talking about Caudron's brother. And this is just everything coming full circle. Caudron learning the truth. And we talked about with him and Laurent last episode how anger and fear make you do terrible things. That was one of the themes last episode. And here he's learning that his anger wasn't even justified, like it wasn't even real, because Daryl was not the one who actually did it. So this is just everything coming full circle. And again, the theme of forgiveness coming up. And then in the hallucination scene, they bring it back again, which feels a little cheap to me. So here we got Carol and Daryl, and this is probably the best scene in maybe the whole show. So we're talking about Sophia, and now I'm getting what they were going for with the flashbacks. Carol can't remember Sophia before she was a zombie. That's all she remembers, and that trauma is definitely something you could almost never let go of. It's always going to be there, especially because it gets brought back up again and again. And she brings up Lizzie, she brings up Henry. So all these things, it's just a cycle that she's been living through. So it's a really emotional scene, you know, but it could have happened anywhere. It's just because we're trying to add a conclusion to this season. We're like, that's her conflict. We wrap that up. I'm assuming we're not going to have Sophia flashbacks next season, you know. We're wrapping that in a bow, and this is supposed to be the conclusion of it. So here we are at the end of the season. This is the final stretch of this episode, and we got to do something big with Daryl and Carol as characters, because you don't want to have 2 seasons of a show with Daryl going by, and there isn't some sort of growth or movement for his character. Even though Carol hasn't been here for 2 seasons, you want to have the same thing for her as well. So that's really what this tunnel is about a self-discovery journey. And they decide to do it through psychoactive substances in bat poop. Literally batshit crazy. And I think that there's a reason why that phrase exists. I don't know if it really is to this extent, but I'm assuming it is, if that's a phrase that we use. I haven't really looked into it. But we have Fallow saying goodbye. He's going off with his love interest, so he gets a happy ending, which is nice, because everybody else is about to not have a happy ending. So we're in this tunnel. I love the creepy underground look. I love the aesthetic. And then we find this station, this military station, and we saw the bat poop, the hallucination stuff. And I'm surprised, like, why didn't Daryl and them pick up the mask right then? I would have. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in, but it's a little too convenient for the plot if they pick it up right now. So they're not going to. But again, I think it would have been convenient for them to do that. And then they could do what they did in Dead City, right? Didn't they do it in Dead City where they trade masks and they take turns with it? They could have done that, and it all could have been fine. And it feels like they should have been smart enough to do that. Daryl's like, they all killed each other. He knows what happened, and yet they don't take advantage of that. It does seem like they would know better, but that's just me. It's kind of nitpicking because I like where we end up going. This is an amazing effect. These bioluminescent zombies, they had like glow-in-the-dark paint is how they did it. If you watch the episode Insider at the end, they talk about how they tried to put in LED lights, wires were just getting ripped, so they just used this paint. It's phenomenal. It works really well. I love the aesthetic. I love the green glow. That's why I got the green LED light for the background. This is so good. I love these zombies, and having this in the hallucination scene is also really smart because we have this dreamlike landscape. And I do think that this could happen. I mean, bioluminescent moss is a real thing, and it grows underground, so I buy it. I 100% buy it. I really like it. It's aesthetically great. It's a cool new zombie thing. It's awesome. So Daryl's the last one to start hallucinating. Code Ron sees his brother, and of course Carol sees Sophia. She wanders off. So Code Ron sees his brother get killed by Daryl, and then he starts trying to kill Daryl. He stabs him, I think, but that ends up not being an issue at all, which I do wonder about that. But it's just a little repetitive, I guess. It just kind of feels like just getting him out of the way so we don't have to worry about him next season. I was really hoping that Fallow and Code Ron and maybe Laurent and some of these other characters, like, I like when we collect these characters and we have cast members around. But we're starting from ground zero with just Daryl and Carol next season. They're supposedly on their way to England, even though we know they're going to, at least the production is going to be in Spain next season. So it does feel a little weird, but I guess we'll figure it out when we get there. But I do ultimately like what they're trying to do here. So Carol needs to move past remembering Sophia as a zombie, and she sees the actual real life version of Sophia. And of course, it doesn't really look like her. One thing that stopped me from realizing what they were doing earlier was they were hiding Sophia's face in the flashback scenes. And I thought it was just for production purposes because obviously it's not the same girl. I didn't make the connection that she can't see Sophia. That's why I was like, it feels forced. I don't know what they're doing. Now that we see it all in context, I understand a little better. So it's a nice scene. And then we have Daryl hallucinating Isabel, which I thought was really excellent because Daryl's thinking about giving up. I mean, he's been surviving a long time, and this feels like it could be it. You know, he's hallucinating, he's not at his best, and then he sees his grandfather, you know, and he doesn't want to leave behind everyone who cares about him because that also is part of why his father was abusive, because the grandfather was absent, because he died in Normandy fighting for freedom, of course. But yeah, I love that connection. It's almost saying goodbye to France, and earlier in the episode we saw the Arc de Triomphe and all the Eiffel Tower and all the locations we've been. So I think this is a great way to say goodbye to the season, and then she's like, keep hope alive. So I think if they did a little bit more to set this up along the way, I didn't really get the feeling that Daryl lost hope other than that first opening scene. I always got the feeling like his journey trying to get home is always inherently a journey of hope because you never know when you're going to get there. So I like the payoff at the end, regardless of the setup. The payoff was great, saying goodbye to Isabel as well. It was really well done, I thought. And then we're back with Carol, and we got the masks, and Daryl has to take out the two Scottish people, and then the song plays, and that's the end. So really good final scene. I think it's going to be divisive among fans just because it's surrealist, it's hallucinations, and in Walking Dead they have relied a little too much on hallucinations. If you look at it overall, you know, we've done a lot of it, especially in the spin-offs. So I do think that this was a good use of that, but I understand where people might be coming from. If they're like, this is a weird episode and I didn't like it, I understand it, but I think it was pretty good. So anyways, overall, I think this season was a step down from season 1, if I'm being honest. I don't think that they stuck the landing with the Laurent storyline. I like that he's alive still. One other thing I forgot to mention was, like, how does Ash know where to go when it comes to the Commonwealth? is going to fly straight there. I guess that conversation happened off screen. I guess we'll just have to accept that. But anyways, I think it was pretty good ending. Good, decent finale. The last 2 episodes of this season were pretty good. And I think overall I would give this season, it's like a 6. It's not great, but it's not bad either. I would definitely, if you watched season 1 and you liked it, I would recommend it. But I was enthusiastically telling people, you got to come back for Daryl Dixon season 1. It was really refreshing for the franchise, new cinematic quality. The cinematic quality is still there, but the writing quality did take a dip this season with a lot of the plot contrivances, and some of the plot lines just didn't stick their landing. But I like the payoff at the end. I feel like they did a decent enough job with it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I have a feeling we're going to get some mixed reactions to this one. But anyways, we're off to Spain for season 3, so I hope to see you guys there. And with that, it's been your boy Shuggy. But stay on Shook Earth Media if you want to see from reviews. I review movies and other content as well. So it's going to be a while before Walking Dead is back. But don't worry, I'm going to be still making content here on the channel. But with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.